Okay, we've looked at the state of nature and how realists and liberals have different views of it. Now, let's look at some more foundations of liberalism. The learning outcomes this time are to see the importance of Kant to liberalism, to see how Wilson's 14 points draw on Kant, and to give concrete definitions of what liberalism is. Immanuel Kant was a hugely important Enlightenment thinker and was quite the polymath, working on such diverse areas as religion and astronomy. For liberals, his most important work was his 1795 essay, Perpetual Peace, a Philosophical Sketch. The aim of the work is quite simple. It tells us how to achieve peace in the world. Now note the fundamental difference here between Kant and the realists. I ended the session on realism by quoting Waltz, who said, "A lot of people don't like realists. Realists face the world as it is." Well, Kant's 1795 work isn't satisfied with that world view. Instead, it tells us how to make peace. And he comes up with some solid steps to do so. I'm going to look at 5 of them. First, no treaty of peace shall be regarded as valid if made with the secret reservation of material for a future war. Here, Kant is calling for states to honour their commitments. This also alludes to the importance of transparency, which is hugely important in international affairs, as we've seen since the Malayan Dialogue. Second, no state having an independent existence, whether it be great or small, shall be acquired by another through inheritance, exchange, purchase, or donation. What Kant is thinking about here is how to prevent wars which start when bits of Europe are divided between the various historical houses. As just one example of how such wars can start, let's look at the 30 Years' War and more specifically the Hessian War. Philip I of Hessen was a busy man, and across his 2 marriages he had 19 children. When he died, he divided Hessen between the 4 sons from his first marriage, Georg, Wilhelm, Philip and Ludwig. So Hessen was divided into Hessen-Darmstadt, which was inherited by Georg I, Hessen-Kassel, which went to Wilhelm IV, Hessen-Rheinfels, taken by Philip II, and Hessen-Marburg, taken by Ludwig IV. Ludwig, however, had no children. So when he died, what was to become of Hessen-Marburg? Well, it was divided between 2 of the other Hessen lands, between Moritz of Hessen-Kassel, his nephew, and Ludwig V of Hessen-Darmstadt. But because Moritz was a Calvinist, Ludwig claimed the right to all of Hessen-Marburg on behalf of the Holy Roman Empire. Thus were the seeds laid of just one of the conflicts of the 30 Years' War. Kant had a great idea to stop this sort of war. Don't allow people to inherit states. Now, that might not seem to be immediately relevant today, but when we look at Woodrow Wilson later, you'll see echoes in his approach to ending colonialism. Third, standing armies shall be abolished in course of time. Kant is calling for the abolition of armies. Let me say that one again. Kant is calling for the abolition of armies. In regarding this as a foundational text, the liberals are making a clear difference between themselves and the realists. Defensive realists say you should build up as much power as you need. Offensive realists say you should build up as much power as you can. Liberals, in the Kantian tradition, say you should abolish armies. Again, I'll revisit that in a moment when we look at Woodrow Wilson. Fourth, no state shall violently interfere with the constitution and administration of another. This one is interesting. An argument can be made that realists would tend to agree with it because of the primacy of the Westphalian system, which we'll look at later in the course. But Kant's point here presents something of a paradox for liberals, one which became evident with the emergence of neoconservatism. Fifth, no state at war with another shall countenance such modes of hostility as would make mutual confidence impossible in a subsequent state of peace. Such are the employment of assassins or of poisoners, breaches of capitulation, the instigating and making use of treachery in the hostile state. Here, Kant is establishing the idea of norms in warfare. Again, we see the idea of acceptable behaviour in war that was first hinted at by Sun Tzu in the previous session.